Good afternoon, friends. Hi, welcome you all to another knowledge session of the Digital Fifth. Thank you for joining in. We'll just wait for 1 or 2 more minutes for others to join in. People are just coming in the session. So, but we'll wait for a couple of minutes to let more people to join in. Okay, guys, I think we're all set to go ahead. So thank you again, everyone, to join in our knowledge sessions. This is very interesting topic that we talk about, like bank and fintech collaboration. So I've also joined in with my colleague Vanshika Agarwal. So thank you for joining in. Just few normal guidelines for the sessions, guys. We'll start the session. We'll run through the presentation. We'll take a logical break at that maybe 30 minutes onwards, and then we'll pick up few questions. Question you can put it in the question answer window that we'll pick it up the question, and also we may allow you to switch on the mic and then ask the question in the sessions, and then we again continue to run, and then at the end we'll take a break. During the session also we'll send the feedback form where that we request you to share your feedback. So with this, I'll just get started. Let me just put up my screen. Sakshi, you need to help me with the screen sharing.
Yes.
Hi, I think if someone can confirm that if you can see my screen. Yeah, thank you. So guys, I think if you look, try to go back 10 years or 12 years back when the emergence of fintech has happened, I think there was lots of the buzzword that it's going to be disruptions, fintech will displace the banks, and all sort of things were coming up. While fintech could able to definitely create their own positioning in the entire the financial institution segment, while banks also continue to drive their digital, and I think hats off to the fintech, which challenged them to look at the way they've been managing their technologies, and that's where that banks taken a massive pace on the digital transformation in the last 10 years. While eventually, as things were moving and the banks were rapidly transforming their digital, while fintech continued to make a strong footprint on the financial institution, they realized that I think collaboration is the way to go forward, right? Bank and fintech needs to come together and then create a good value proposition for the customer. And that's where you can see in the last 7-8 years, we have run remarkable examples of the bank fintech partnership where they created the business model. Now it has also come with our own challenges of the risk and compliance, where that RBIs continue to get more and more bringing the regulations to drive that entire the bank and fintech partnership in a structured manner, right? So today that's where that we are going to focus, that how the bank and fintech partnership, which can create a win-win situation for the growth for both the entity, right? That's where that we are going to focus. So it's applicable to both the entity, right? Banks as well as the fintech. And when we talk about the fintech, as we go, we'll figure it out that fintech, we are not only talking about the B2C and the B2B segments of the fintechs who are catering to their customer, but also the B2B tech fintechs, right? Which are like primarily the banks consume some technology services from these fintech entity who are creating the technology solutions. So we'll, in these sessions, me and Vanshika will try to look into the what are the components of the bank fintech partnerships are there, relationship. How do you go about managing that entire the product as well as run the program of the bank and fintech partnership to build in a right business model? So that's where that we look into that. And then what are the KPIs that you need to have in your mind so that at least it tells you that your bank and fintech partnership is working and is working aligned with what the goals that you have set it, right? And then also very important, it's not an easy, it's like a marriage, right? Where that both the parties have the certain interest in the relationship. But what are the success factors that need to be taken care of it? So that's where we go. Now, as far as the introduction, my Shashank Shekhar, I take care of the consulting business at the Digital Fifth. I've been part of the Digital Fit almost last 5 years. Prior to that, I've worked with L&T, Infotech, and Wipros, primarily in the technology and the risk compliance advisory services. Then I joined DCB Bank, where that I was responsible for running the IT governance to take care of the risk and compliance for the banks, for all the regulatory requirement which was coming from the RBI, as well as I continued to start managing the entire the infrastructure, the digital banking, that entire mobile banking, as well as the interbanking. And then continue to go in the set up that entire the open banking platforms, where that I started working very closely with the fintech into building the creating the tech integration and creating the new business model. And then I work with the Digital Fifth. I'll talk about the Digital Fifth in for subsequent slide. But meanwhile, if I invite Vanshika, if you can introduce yourself quickly.
Hello everyone, I am Vanshika Agrawal and I have been an associate consultant with the Digital Fifth for past 1 year. And talking about the topic, I have been very closely working with this topic as my programs here. So to give a full understanding of what is happening here, I've come to give you a session on this topic of bank and fintech partnership.
Yeah, so you can ask question because Vanshika is right now working with the bank, helping the multiple bank and fintech partnership, where the C has been involved in the product and program both. So with that, just quick introduction of the Digital Fifth. Many of you, I can see that coming for the first time for our sessions. Those who have already know us, but still for them, we are in India's fintech and digital finance consulting firm, where that we work with the banks and the fintechs as well as the NBFCs and other financial institutions on all kind of the digital advisory, which may involve from the digital benchmarking, building the digital strategy and the roadmap, running the digital program. So all sort of the digital advisory that we work with them. We also do lots of work on the open banking advisory, where that API benchmarking, design of the API banking strategy, as well as the running the entire the open banking programs that it could be there, or setting up the neo banking business model. So those are the services that we work on the open banking. We do lots of the work with the fintechs and startup, also helping them in the go-to-market strategy, the product design, product model, in fact, the business model also that we'll walk into that. Then technical due diligence, where that we assess technologies stack of any fintechs or any VC want to acquire or put an investment into any fintechs, that will through the technology due diligence. We do a lot of work on the security and compliance. As you know, that entire the financial institutions is heavily regulated, and lots of the guidelines keeps on coming from the RBI, be it on the technology, be it on the digital lending, digital payments. That's where that we work with the banks and fintechs to get them completely compliant with those guidelines, right? And also we do lots of the research and content. I'm sure you would have seen our recent report, which was released in the February on the entire B2B enterprise fintechs. If you have not got a chance, please go ahead and see on our website. These are just a snapshot about the few of the customers with whom we have worked either in the fintechs or with the banks. Banks have been working largely into the digital advisory, as well as the bank and fintech partnership that we've been talking about. We do lots of work on the embedded finance, where that non-financial companies, we help them into plug in the financial services on their platforms. We work with the government institutions like NPCI, Mumbai Fintech Hub. Internationally also, we've done few works. We do lots of the corporate training, so where that we primarily for the corporate, from the top management to the middle management. We take the session on the digital banking, digital transformations, digital lending, risk and compliance. So those are the trainings, very contextualized and personalized training programs for the corporates. So that's where we are the customers. We definitely, I think we rely on our strong network. That's where that we also publish lots of the contents like either reports or the newsletters. Many of you might have come through the getting into the newsletters, right? So that's where we do that. I already spoken about the training services. So with this all, I just come to directly on the topic. So bank fintech partnership, as we're talking about that, we'll just get a little deeper into that. How do you go about building that bank fintech partnership, and how do you build a successful partnership, right? Just to give you a snapshot that, and which will give you an indication that how the industry is evolving, especially when you talk about the fintech partnership, right? Banks have been, while on one hand, they have been doing lots of the work into transform their digital and manage the customer on their own channels. But banks have found lots of value into building a new business model in partnership with the fintech. Some of the Federal has been one of the small mid-size of the banks have been doing a phenomenal job into building and creating new business model in partnership with the fintechs. And I've been talking about that fintech is not only about that B2C or B2B, the financial services delivery fintech, but also it could be technology services delivery fintechs. Like it could be the newest technology, like, say, for example, M2P, which may be building on a newest platforms, or the UB, which has a co-lending platform. So many of these are like newest fintechs who are building the technology services. So banks have been very open about the partnering with this kind of the relationship, while majority of the relationship will be to expand the business, right? Like Axis working with Jupiter, or say, for example, Federal working with Jupiter to launch a Jupiter Neo Bank, right? And some of these other small finance bank like Equitas again partnered with Neo to launch a Neo banking platforms, right? So that has been there. While there could be a relationship in the lending, it could be the payments, it could be the wealth side kind of the services. So examples are flooded. Some of the partnership relationship is doing extraordinarily pretty good for both the entities, while some may be struggling, some may be trying to make a good foot into the expanding the business. So this was just to give you a snapshot of that. It's be it the large bank or the small bank, every bank is exploring that partnership. I think recently you also might have started seeing that many of the platforms like Money Control or some of this, where you could see that lots of the FD fixed deposit product from the many of the small finance banks are available on that platform that you can do the booking. Like it could be from Suryodaya, it could be from utkarsh. So lots of the small finance bank is also find lots of good potential to do the partnership to expand the business, right? Just to try to get more insight to understand that what impacts it creates, and not all partnership may be highly successful, right? Some may be struggle, but I think it's depend that how do you have entirely the partnership has been built, entire the business model have been conceptual, and that's where primarily our focus gonna be there in the today's sessions, right? So look at the example, like, for example, accounts side, like Equitas wanted to expand their saving account customer portfolio, where they look the partnership Neo, where that jointly they launched a Neo banking platforms, which has done a better customer intuitive UI UX, which prompted Equitas to acquire lots of more current account customers, right? You can look at some of the impact that it created, almost 2x, so it was 2-in-1 investment in saving account, almost 13.8, and the data is quite old, right? Quite old. 13.8 lakhs account were opened in this partnership, which led to the CASA balance increase of almost 343 crores. So these are some phenomenal growth story that can be seen. While other like IU working partner with iXiGo to launch a co-branded credit card, Utkarsh working with Finable to launch a personal loan. So these are like B2B2C kind of things, right? So bank working with fintech to work with the retails kind of the customers. While bank continue to deal with those customers through their own channel, they find that potential and opportunities to work with the fintech, because fintech has their own outreach, right? So that's where they see the value in partnering with this kind of the fintech who has the connect with the retail customers. Similarly, few more examples, I'll skip that. Well, it's not like but only the retail customer, but many of the fintech who are operating into the MSME, SME segments, there that also banks find a strong potential, right? So like Ujjivan working with ProCap into the working capital financing to the retailers, right? Or say Equitas working with the Open to work on the debit card for the MSMEs, right? So these are some interesting use cases there. So this was just to set the context that how the market is working. There are many examples. We just picked up a few of the select examples. So let's try to look at that, how does fintech partnership work. But first and foremost, I've been talking that there is a need to create a good value proposition for the fintechs. But what are the needs? Why the banks and fintechs started looking at the collaboration? They should come for the collaboration. Definitely, it leads to the better innovations, right? Both parties bringing their own strengths to create new products like the merchant cash advance, the new banking models, or the BNPL. There are many examples where the innovation has happened just because the bank and fintechs decided to work together, right? Because everybody has their own strength. Definitely, banks also see that how the customer experience can be increased, and that's typically happen when they feel that if they work with the bank fintech partnership, it helps to improve upon the UX experience, right? While at the other side, while the bank worked with the fintechs to expand the business, in reverse, it also helped them to accelerate the digital transformation. I give you an example. Say, for example, any banks is trying to put that entire their lending channels to digitize so that their customer acquisitions entire journeys from their own platforms gets through processing for some of this loan product. They might be struggling, but moment they start working with the fintechs, for the fintechs, they need to set those APIs in place, right? While in the process of setting those APIs and bringing that entire the digital lending processes in a straight through processing for the working with fintech, eventually it leads to them to improve their digital transformation in the backend for their own customer, their own channels, right? So while working in the partnership, and fintechs bring those technology experience also to the bank, that how they can improve about their digital transformation, right? Because fintechs definitely look to partnership with the bank who are willing to continue to challenge their own technology landscape and continue to improve upon their technologies, right? It's definitely helped that both the party to work on their each other's strength and explore the new market and customer segment, especially for the banks. And it works in both the direction. Like, say, for example, a bank is not very strong in SME, MSME, and they want to expand into that areas. They would love to partner with the fintechs who has been a good expertise into MSME, SME, right? Because they have learned through the process and it bring the knowledge to the banks, right? It could be other way around where that banks who has a strength, let's say, for example, MSME, they want to continue to work into that fintechs working in MSME because they know their strength and they can judge. So it can work into both the side, right? I think risk management and compliance, and this is more from the where that how that's entire the relationship improve on the risk management compliance, where some of this fintech bring that AI-driven, lots of the newest solutions, which definitely help the banks also to improve about this risk management. And sorry. And last not the least, but create a new business model, right? New business opportunity for the revenue generation, the cost management, market of expansion, and all these things, right? It helps them to create a new business model. And that's actually that any bank fintech partnership to look for that. What are the business model that they are creating? What are they are trying to achieve? And we'll look into that as subsequently we move, we'll understand. Definitely, I think previous slides would have given you insight that how this partnership bring that benefits to both the parties, right? Expertise sharing. They both are able to share each other expertise to improve, like, say, for example, customer journeys. Now, banks, when working with the fintech, and fintech is the customer interface for onboarding and servicing, right? And bank backend is being used to cater to that delivery of the banking products. They bring the experience of each other that how the entire journey can be improved. And that's where I think Vanshika has been working with, where that partner and the banks are trying to work together so that the journey can be improved and it's better for the bank as well as for the customers, right? I think customer service, where that they try to look, because fintechs understand their customer pretty well. They have the data where they analyze. So they are able to customize those banking products in partnership with the banks, right? I think tech upgrades, where that fintech guide the banks into upgrading the using of the advanced technologies. APIs, it's helps each other to improve upon the APIs. Definitely, I think credit areas where the bank and fintech partnership has been doing a lot, and also because the RBI has been bringing also the regulatory framework around the digital lending, where the banks and fintech can work together under the guidance of It improves upon the inclusive credit because fintechs bring again the same example of bringing lots of the data to understand the customer profile, right? And the security and the customer retentions. But these are the limited, but definitely lots more benefit. But now let's try to understand that when we talk about bank fintech partnership, what it all is talking about, right? It is that banks just go and tie up with a neo and just go ahead and launch the service. It's not as simple as that, right? You need to look at the multiple aspects into that whole of the building the relationship. I think important is to start with the product, like what product, that partnership that you are trying to build. Is it merchant cash advance? Is it the personal loan? Is it the unsecured business loan? You need to understand that what are the product that you are going to work together and cater to the identified customer segments, right? And then entire the product management, product development has to be considered as in a kind of the new product development approach itself to work into that fintech partnership. You can't just pick up the existing product management structure that you may have for the PL and just apply it into any bank fintech partnership. It may not work like that, right? But importantly, you need to understand that what product and then go about that setting up the right development. Fintechs, as we know, that is all about the technology. So fintechs try to work completely driven through the technology. They look for that completely tech integration with the banks so that they can consume the bank's backend services, either for the product creation, for customer service, all those different services, right? So tech integrations becomes very critical, that where that you need to understand that what are the APIs expectations are at the both the end, how the API integration can happen. So you start looking into completely tech integration and it directly linked to the product, because when you're talking about the product, you will also consider the journeys. So when you start plotting the journeys, then you start looking at what are the APIs will require in the entire building the journeys as well the product. So it will all boil down to having the right tech integrations. Then also you need to consider into the customer experience, like how you're going to improve the customer experience now, because when the bank acquire the customer, they know that how they are going to handle the customer. But when the fintech acquire the customer as a front end, how the entire the customer experience need to be ensured, you need to look that also. So that's again become very critical component. I think today's context, when we are talking here, I think regulatory compliance has become the utmost critical. It has become a part of the product development, become a part of the tech integration, where that you need to be very clear that what product that you have picked up, what kind of the product customer segment that you looked at, go back and look at that. What are the regulatory compliance applicable to that relationship, applicable to the product, bring everything into that and make sure that all the regulatory compliance has been taken care. And now I'm not talking about the security here as an independent, but I'll consider as a part of the regulatory compliance itself. Need to be very and utmost critical that how the customers data security as well as the data privacy will be gonna taken care of as a part of the regulatory compliance, right? Then revenue sharing and monetizations. So it's entire that what are the charges gonna be there? What are the interest rate that will be there? Depending on the product to product, the revenue sharing and the monetization will differ. Then also ecosystem expansion, that how this entire that bank fintech partnership we're going to help on the ecosystem expansion. Partner appropriateness, I think this becomes very critical more from the bank perspective. Like, is that fintech partnership is just for the sake of doing the partnership, or that there is a sense that you will be able to achieve that business that you are planning to do with that. So that's where that partner appropriateness that need to be looked into when you are planning for the bank fintech partnership. And the last not the least, but utmost important, and I try to keep it at the last itself, that very important is that what business model you are trying to create in the whole of the process. Are you looking for the customer acquisition? Are you looking at the market expansion? Are you looking into that what kind of the asset book that you are going to build if you are trying to talk about the lending product, or if you are trying to look into the deposit, what kind of deposit product, or if you are just looking at the kind of the interface for the payments that. So payment-led business model, you need to be looking into that. So first thing, very much product, everything, product development, revenue sharing, tech integration, everything will boil down moment you start looking for the business model perspective. So I'll take a pause here. And now as we looked at it, that product becomes very critical, and bank fintech partnership, you need to consider it as a program. So how do you go about from the building of the product and running it as a program? I'll invite my colleague Vanshika to guide you through the process, where that we have lots of experience that she's bringing on the ground.
So product and program management comes along with a duty of handling the product as well as handling the program in a manner where you have to be a person to be first contacted with in every way possible. For example, if it comes to the product, setting up of a product which is configurable for the bank and for the fintech as well. We cannot give a upper hand to any of the parties here because the collaboration has to be equally handled by both the parties. The customer is in the front facing, but the back end is of a bank, for example. So the handling of the process has to be very right, where you have to put your needs as well as the partner needs in the front facing, and the product should be adhered to the compliance, would be okay for the business, would be okay for the risk, as well as would be okay with the whole perspective of the customer experience as well. As a product and program management outcomes, we'll have to also work on the product journeys, on the flows, what are the APIs that are to be triggered, how could we reduce the costing of the product as well, because costing is one of the major factors when it comes to a partnership model, because the service piece is being divided with the both the parties and earning is divided by both the parties. When it comes to the product or product configuration and product handling, we'll also have to build on the BRDs, that is business requirement documents, which gives us an insight of all the functionalities that the product will be having, all the tech integrations that a product will be handling, and what are the requirements that we need as a business from the product. All the legal agreements to be handled by the product and program managers, the operating processes creations, and also any customization that comes within the journey. One of the major aspects that we find across the product and program manager is sign off from all the parties, because getting a sign off on all the things is very important to handle a process and later on come into a configuration that the production should go on a very appropriate manner. All the documents, all the procedures, all the APIs, all the technology fronts also has to be very foolproofly provided a walkthrough to everybody who's going to later on handle the product very on a regular basis and regular manner. There should be an audit that should be taken up on the product as well by all the teams which are required. For example, if it is a lending journey, the KYC should be handled properly. The video KYC should be handled properly. There should be compliance ready to give you a sign off on things. There should be a product sign off. There could be a business sign off also, because the interest rates, the commercials, the costing is all in one book manner when it comes to a product designing and launching of a product. When it comes to the configuration manner, there is API integration plan that has to be built. There is integration happening between the platforms where they call the APIs, request for the APIs, and the APIs have to respond in a manner where they give an answer to everything. We also have to talk about the BRE. We'll also have to talk about the policy, what are the third-party integrations that are going to happen within the journey, and what third-party integrations are required and what are to be skipped as well. When it comes to the testing of a program, the testing should be done thoroughly on 3 functionalities. One is load testing, one is platform security testing, and other is the UAT. So all these should be handled by the internal as an external team, which is to be doing the load testing. There is a UAT, there is a ISG testing, which is information governance and security testing. And all this is to be handled by the internal team of a bank or a fintech partner for giving the product the right security reasons, and the compliance should be adhered to it. All after getting all these on one go, we go for a go live action plan where we see how we can go live on, how many times the UAT should be done, what is our readiness, are we going to have a closed user group going live first and then later on going live. All these scenarios are to be seen and tested first. Once we go live, after having a CUG plan, we'll have to work on all the KPIs that we had planned before the product was initiated. We'll have to have a monitoring plan to monitor the revenue, to monitor the reconciliation, to monitor the process, if there's any backup that is needed, if the tech is working good or not, if the product is in the right space or not, are we targeting the right customer segment or not. All these has to be tested and all these have to be monitored very adherently to handle the process. And after all this is once on a product side point of view. When it comes to a partnership, it runs as a program as well. You will have to have a defined timeline of the program. Without having a timeline to run a program, the program cannot be successful and beneficial for both partner and the bank as well. So we'll have to create a project plan, adhere to the timelines. We'll have to also create a risk register to handle what are the problems that are coming within the program, to see how can we escalate it, how can we solve it, how to go forward to not getting it in front of us later on in the stage. We'll also have to have a daily tracker with all the responsibilities to be marked to a personality who is going to handle it, and how are we going to solve it as well. All the comments related to it, what are the dates to complete it, what is the buffer time as well. We'll have to keep a buffer time in all our programs to keep the program running and to do a timely handle of it. There should be team interactions happening between internal and external teams to handle the process. The partner should be on time, the internal team should be on time, and these hurdles helps the team to understand the process as well, and also to know the stages of the process. We also happen to cover up with the project weekly statuses update with the stakeholders. There is steering committee meetings happening where all the higher leaders come on a meeting to see what is the product, in which stage the project is, and are we on the track of the project or not. We also handle teams meetings which tell us what is to be done and what is not to be done. So combinedly, the product and program management gives us an understanding of how the product is launched and what is to be launched as well, what steps are to be taken, and how are we going forward to move forward with it.
Thanks. So this is very important, guys, right? You look at it, it's not easy that you click on the partnership and the agreement has been done and then you're good to go about it. It is need to be taken as a proper structured and methodological approach, because we are talking about multiple pointers, like it's not designing the products, ensuring the compliance has been taken care, security has been taken care. So that's why it's become important that you run through as a proper product management approach as well as the program management. And it moves pretty fast, right? Typically bank and fintech partnership, because there is urgency at the both ends. So it moves pretty fast. But how do you take care and ensure that you able to manage that each of the logical steps which are required in a structured manner? That's where the success depends upon, right? Yeah, Vanshika, continue.
Yeah. So on a partnership planning, how can we plan a partnership? We'll have to have a strategy of what the product should be. Are we going on a partnership for a customer, engaging the customer, or we are launching a new product? We'll also have to have a configuration of a win-win partnership with both bank and fintech, because it is their point of view and our point of view to bring a lot of customers to us and a lot of business to us. We'll have to find the key partnership, like Shashank said, that we'll have to have the partner appropriateness checked. If it is on the market reputation of the partner, we'll have to have a competitor study. Are we viable of what we are thinking of as a strategy to move forward with the partnership? We'll also have to create a framework for evaluation of the partner. We'll have to see what is the partner due diligence. We'll have to have a background check of the partner. We'll have to have all the reports of the partner, even the financial reports, the legal reports, the performance of the partner, to understand what is happening with the partner, and in future, are we going to go forward with the partnership or not. We'll have to also have the analysis of the revenue, how the revenue monitoring will be, how the revenue sharing will be. Are they technologically very viable for the partnership or not? Is our technology very comfortable for this or not? We'll also have to have project planning and process planning also. The program planning will be of the program plan, how long the program is going to be, what are the clauses of the program, how will the program run in banks and fintechs partnership model, how we'll have to have legal agreements and integration to align on the partnership. And after going live, we'll also have to work on the performance analysis and renew of the partnership as well.
Vanshika, before we continue, I think we have a couple more questions. I'll pick it up. And guys, please share your question in the Q&A sections. Vikas is asking that with the regulation changing so frequently, what is the impact on this partnership? Are the banks taking a back foot prior to these partnerships? I think one definitely regulatory landscape is changing pretty fast, but also it's bringing lots of the clarity to both banks and the fintechs, especially in the select segment like lending. You look at it, or you look at it, your payment side of it. Also the clarity, and including that some of the guidelines at the bank's end for the compliance, outsourcing, and all these things. So banks are able to have the much more clarity that what are the partnerships that they get into that, right? Some of the areas may still not have the much clarity, where the banks typically may take a kind of a very careful and cautious approach to go into the relationship. But it's not that banks are taking a back foot. Banks are definitely looking at a very proactively, but it all depends on the what business model, what value proposition that you are bringing on the table, right? And more importantly, they are willing to take into the approach for the partnership if you are able to give the comfort that you will be able to align with the risk and compliance requirement for the banks, right? Because ultimately banks are liable for all the risk and compliance and regulatory directions, which is from the regulators, right? So it's not that they are taking a back foot. Yes, in certain segment, they may have the cautious approach, right? But I think because in the certain areas, lots of the clarity has come, banks are becoming more proactive into that relationship. I think second question on the Varun is asking as a probably he's a lending fintech and operating as a marketplace. He has a kind of the DSA partnership and give the leads to the lenders. And he's looking into that how to get into the FLDG agreement with the lender. Also, what is the right time to get into such discussion? Should we build a good enough distribution and business model? So Varun, if you look at, if you would have heard Vanshika, where that banks try to look into the some kind of the analysis with the fintechs, that what kind of the vintage that they may have, what kind of the value proposition they are bringing, what kind of the business that you will be able to generate. And that's where primarily may come with some kind of a historical information that you go to the banks that in last 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, you are able to generate that kind of business. You are able to demonstrate that there is a continuous growth into that. If you are able to demonstrate, and if you have a decent funding for you to sustain that growth business, they will be looking into that discussion. And FLDG discussion and all this thing will depend on that what product that you are looking into that, right? So there also RBI has given a clarity that, okay, 5% of FLDG. The banks are looking open for the get into that FLDG arrangement. But it depends upon that what product and what construct that you are trying to build. So I think you may initiate the discussion with the banks, right? If you feel that you are able to generate a good business within a good CSER, I think you should be able to do that. I think Sankar is asking, great, wanted to hear views on the business model white label. Yeah, some of these areas that banks have been trying to do in a white label kind of an arrangement. Like I know that at least on the neobanks, SME neobank or some of the neobank areas or some of these areas, they will like to go for the white label kind of things for the cater to their own customers. But it depends upon that. But ultimately, the process will remain same, right? Challenges in co-lending and wealth services partnership, like difference in credit assessment model, data issues. I think this is very wide questions, and I'm afraid that in such short time whether I will be able to answer. But there are definitely every model will have its own challenges, right? How do you able to resolve those challenges by coming on the table and using the technology? If you can able to solve, wealth will have some kind of the challenges because wealth is still, as overall the wealth, if you look at it, they still need to expand, right? Lots of the good traction has happened in some of the bank fintech partnership. Some of the players have been able to create that wealth advisory as wealth as a service platforms, and the banks have been looking to partner with that kind of the platforms, right? So those are the things are there. Is there any cultural issues like customer ownership? Yeah, that could be in a quite good challenging areas where that if you don't work with the banks and agree on that, who will own the customer? Look at from the RBI perspective, RBI regulator, that they will primarily see that if the customer is consuming any banking products from the bank partnership, bank should have that ownership of the customer. Bank should be liable for any kind of customer service issues that the bank may have, or customer may have, right? So these are the definitely and very tricky questions. You need to work very closely with the bank to get an agreement. Fintechs like to have some kind of engagement model with that customer because they are bringing those customers. So these are typically challenging areas are there, right? I don't say that it is not. How we can avoid non-compete agreement in this relationship? Yes, some of the scenarios, again, it all depends upon that partnership structure and the business model that you are creating. Some of the business model, banks and fintech both are open to have the open relationship, while some of this area may look for that non-compete agreement, right? So, like for example, if there is any unique proposition that you are trying to create, or if you are not able to give them the right pricing and from the bank perspective, they may try to look at the non-compete agreement, right? So it all depends upon that what structure that you are trying to build. These are the definitely very open questions coming to. In fact, some of the relationship that we have been working and have been part, while lots of the things move, while service agreement continue to remain time taking, and before going live, almost like 3 months, 4 months, while the program is going live, the MSA is still work in progress, right? Because these are some tricky questions, but definitely I've seen those getting resolved in the mutual interest for each other. So I'll not go into the question again. I'll take a pause and I'll come back to pick up those other questions as we move forward. But meanwhile, thanks for and keep putting the question. In case if you are not also able to answer those questions, we may bring that answer to the questions and share with you on our LinkedIn handle, guys. So Vanshika, move next.
Yes. On all the monitoring perspectives of how we monitor a partnership, it is a very key perspective to have the monitoring process very right. We'll also have to judge on the success part of it as well.
Vanshika, just sorry, guys. Meanwhile, I'll request you guys to share your feedback. My team has already put the feedback in the chat box, chat of Zoom. Please share your feedback always. Your feedback always encourages, always help us to improve, right? So thanks, and sorry, Vanshika, to disturb you. Just go, please.
Yeah. So how do we monitor a partnership? We'll also have to check on the customer integration metrics. For example, what is the adoption rate that we are seeing on? What is the how is customer onboarding? What is the customer's experience while he's getting onboarded on the platform, and how are services working? All these has to be a part of monitoring services when we go into a partnership model. We'll also have to see how our tech is harmonizing. We'll also have to see how the communication between the fintech and bank technology is happening. Is the integration getting smooth? Are we facing any issues in getting the responses of APIs or not? How frequent is the API failing? And how is the backup working of a bank also, and as well as of fintech also? Because when it comes to a partnership model, both partners, even a bank and a fintech, are equally applicable on the tech front availability when it comes to a successful partnership. So the tech of both the teams have to work on properly, and the backup of both the teams have to be ready all the time. And a continuous monitoring should happen on all the requests and responses that we are getting, to have the customer does not drop off within the journey when he's completing a journey, and all the services provided by the bank and partner should be working on a very right manner. We also have to conduct studies to assess the partner's impact of customer satisfaction and usability. So the front facing, if it is a fintech who is having the front facing and the customer is directly talking to the fintech, the bank has a responsibility to check if the partnership that we are working on is giving the right directions to the customer, and the customer is getting the right answers that they are requesting for. For example, if a customer raises a concern in a request, the request should be later on shared with the bank so that they can also put it as a customer query with their own system, as it is regulated by RBI to keep it in front when a customer raises a concern. So all these studies are to be assessed. We'll also have to see how innovation is working on it. Any new thing that comes within the market, both bank and the fintech should assess it, and if it is applicable for them to move it into the journey, they should also think of moving into the journey and optimizing their own journey as well, to follow the banks and the market's demands and expects that are coming forward. The performance tracking should also happen. For example, we'll also have to see what is the TAT. We'll also have to see what is the go live readiness. We'll have to see what is the success rate of the integration. How is the performance working? So these are few success factors that we try to work on while we are into a partnership management model. We'll also have to look into the security and response times as well. When it comes to the cyber security threats and everything, even the government of India, even bank, even fintechs are very, very concerned about these threats that are coming forward. And we, as a partnership model, everybody should look into this and should be very adhered to when it comes to cyber security threats and everything. The dependency and bottleneck analysis is, so while going into a partnership model, we'll have to work on the dependencies that we have within the bank, that we have within the teams, that we have within the operational activities, and we'll also have to find out what the bottlenecks are and how to solve them. We'll also have to prepare on the exit strategy if any of the operations fails and the partnership dissolves. How are we going to minimize the disruption, and how are we going to move forward with the journey that this partnership is not going to work forward? How do we move into next partnership and without any problem that is faced by the customer that we onboarded through this partnership as well? The risk management, so monitoring upholds compliances, and we'll have to also think about how do we minimize security risk and avoid any regulatory penalties that we have within the bank partner fintechship. While we go into a partnership, RBI also keeps an eye on how things are happening in a partnership. How is everything within the tech, within the documents, within the personal information is being handled by both banks and fintechs, and are they also adhering to the RBI guidelines that are coming forward? So keeping that in mind and reducing the penalties is one of the things that we'll have to monitor while we have a success in our partnership. We'll also have to check on the operational monitoring. For example, is the reconciliation happening on the right manner or not? If the revenue generation is going in the right way or not? Are we sharing the revenue as per we discussed or not? So all these operational activities are also checked while we are in a partnership model.
Thanks, Vanshika. Guys, these are really very critical factors that you can use to manage your partnership, because it's not only about that making things go live, right? You're into the long relationship, right? And primarily the relationship is to increase the business value for both the parties, right? But at the same time, banking is a very controlled business. So you need to be very careful that you adhere to the compliance requirement. You continue to monitor, right? And these are all bringing through our experience on the table, right? Working with lots of the banks and the fintechs, that this becomes very critical. The moment you lose out any of the items, it can create a discontent between both the parties. It may create an issues of the compliance. It may create an issue of the customer service. You don't want all those things, right? So make sure that all these 6 or 9 that pointers that we talk about, that go back and look into your relationship, look into partnership, and try to see that how you are monitoring those KPIs, right? So that's become very critical. Thanks, Vanshika. So while these are very critical KPIs, but at the same time, let's look at that some of the success factors, right? What are the things that we need to be careful as an organizations, both the parties come together for building relationship. Meanwhile, again, request you all to please share your feedback. Feedbacks are very close to our heart. And also those who share the feedback, we go back and share this knowledge deck that we have created, right? It's all created through our experience, right? So while we have seen most of the pointers as we have seen in the earlier slide, but I'm just trying to revisit and summarizing that it's very important that if you're getting into partnership, there has to be a very strong strategic alignment, right? Both the parties are going together to increase the value for each other. Like some banks, if you're working with a lending partner, right? Lending fintechs, banks definitely looking in that case will help them to increase their asset book. Fintech also look at that a stable lending partner, which helps them to continue the flow of the loans for their customers, right? And where that both are able to bring that customers, which is aligned to both their requirements, right? So strategic alignment, growth vision has to be very clear. So that's why it's become very important that founders as well as the senior business leaders of the banks have a very close discussions, right? It doesn't happen only at the product level, right? There has to be a strategic vision alignment at the top. Work very closely and don't shy away from bringing any innovations, but make sure that it's within the regulatory compliance, but embrace innovation. And that's where fintech looks into that flexibility from the banks, that they are open to explore that, like for example, customer journeys. If there are typically 4 steps process, and fintech is bringing an approach to bring that, cut down the 2 steps, but at the same time ensuring that there is no compromise of the compliance or the KYC, please go ahead with that, right? So it's important that you listen to those innovations and adapt to those kind of the changes, right? Yes, I think nevertheless, in today's environment, if you're bringing bank and fintech partnership, creating a new business model, don't compromise anything on the regulatory compliance. Always getting very tougher and tougher on that things. They are not stopping the business, only they are expecting that there is a respect to the compliance, there is a adherence to the compliance, to the core of it. That's all, right? today's, I don't want to get into that, what kind of the penalties that they bring on the table, but RBI is very careful, and they look into the, when they come for the inspection and all these things, the bank's always under this inspection. They go and look at that each of the partnership and what kind of the business are getting created. They go into the details. So it's very important that you very core to that, adhere to the regulatory requirement, risk management. Continue to follow the customer-centric approach. For both, customer is the key. From the RBI also, customer is the key, right? And definitely have a very collaborative approach in the whole of the process, right? I think these are our experience working with the banks and looking into that some of this opportunity that is creating in the market. Huge opportunities either in the payment space. They're lending definitely. The BNPL may be slowing down, but merchant cash advance, gig worker loans, cash flow lending, SME, MSME lending. These are some of the emerging use cases. Deposits, I think the retail side saving and the fixed deposit have been working pretty well. Now more opportunity will get created in the current accounts. Again, the recurring deposits, business accounts kind of things. Insurance definitely is wide open. Corporate, not much fintech work has happened, but this could be one area where that some of this more and more partnership will emerge, where the trade finance, supply chain financing, and bundling of the services, right? These are the things will be there. So I think we have touched upon almost all of the aspects. So we'll take a pause here. And then again, there are some questions which are there. We'll just try to pick it up. Again, Aditya is asking that he's a non-metro-based fintech looking to collaborate through a specific APIs for loan documentation processing with major commercial bank or PSBs. Which bank would you recommend as ideal for such an LSP or RE relation? So Aditya, I may not be able to give you a straight answer to the things. You may need to look at that with which bank that you may be able to align, which banks could be the ideal, because the areas that you're talking about, the agri and all these things, which banks has interest or which banks is looking forward to. So you may need to interact, or you may need to look at to somebody who can help you into the whole of the process, right? I can't tell the state that this bank A or bank will be the ideal, right? And also you need to look at that which bank has the readily good APIs available, what kind of fintech partnership they are already working into that. So those are the things that you will need to study for through the process. I think Radhakrishnan, again, it's a question as a regulatory guidelines is changing very fast on this context. Can you advise where they can get all these updates from time to time? Or Radhakrishnan, definitely our newsletter is one of the key source. I'm just trying to sell ourselves. But our newsletter is definitely a source where that any new regulations comes, we try to bring in a commentary as soon as possible through our newsletter or through the LinkedIn handle. But RBI website is the, I think, great source for the any checks that you want to do, because as soon as any regulations bring on the table, RBI publishes on their website, right? How does the technical due diligence for banks? Okay, so technical due diligence for banks, we have our own process where deep understanding of the technologies. So primarily, if the bank want us to onboard any fintechs and want to assess that fintechs technology health that we do from the technology, or banks want to look at that how we can help understand their technologies in the entire environment and do the diagnostic study, we can do that for both. So that's where we do that. And this done through the platform and as a review, architecture review, the integration, the security and compliance. So those are the aspects that we try to look into that. Manas is asking, is RBI proactively encouraging the bank plus fintech partnership? And it's very difficult to answer because RBI never comes and talk about that. Okay, if you look at that time to time commentary from the RBIs and all these things, they definitely don't discourage, right? Definitely. At the same time, they may not be encouraging also. They definitely want that fintech to continue to grow. And they also know that fintech will continue to grow only through the good partnerships that they come through the banks, right? So they know that the bank fintech partnership is very critical for the fintechs to grow in the country, right? But at the same time, they only want that there is a strong compliance adherence by both the parties. So they may not proactively, they don't definitely discourage also, it's right? They definitely want both the parties to come together and build a relationship, right? Can we do a short call with Shashank regarding a proposal bank tie with our fintech? Okay, thanks, BK. We'll definitely get in touch with you. Thanks for that. So, guys, are you helping any this partnership deal? We can. I think if you put up a feedback and share your question, we can definitely discuss with you guys. So I think we have responded to most of the question, but anybody has their own any questions, I think we are open. We can ask, you can ask the question, you can raise your hand. I think someone has raised, Preeti has raised the hand, and if Preeti is available, maybe Sakshi, if you can unmute the mic, maybe you can ask the question. Preeti, Sakshi, if you can unmute the mic.
Yes, sir, I've enabled it.
I can't still see that. Okay, Preeti, can you speak? You may ask question. In fact, no, I don't think so. Preeti, mic is okay. Talking. Okay, Alok.
Hi,
And
Shashank.
guys, you ask a question again. Request, please share your feedback. Sakshi has already put the link in the chat box, and also she has given the link to the station to our newsletter where you can get the complete insight updates from the market, what is happening in the bank, fintech, regulatory, everything. Yes, Alok, sorry. Please go ahead.
Yes, Shashank. Hi.
Hi.
It was nice listening to you and very good session. Couple of details which I would like to engage with you maybe after this call.
Sure.
Basically on the corporate and the corporate lending related bank fintech partnership. And if you could share more insight and how a fintech or bank can leverage each other. Because this is a space, I believe the corporate space is pretty much where not much of the partnership has happened across country
Yes.
due to certain reasons, because the lengthy documentations for corporate onboarding. Banks have their own risk mitigation processes along in line with that, right? And so, yeah, I would like to hear from you. What do you foresee, and what are the area of improvement which fintechs should focus on right now? And then we can connect post this session. We can connect one-on-one, and we can see how we can engage with each other uh, on the bank fintech partnership. Yes.
Sure, Alok. In fact, that's why I spoke about that. Not much work has happened, and not many fintech has also tried to explore in the corporate segment side of it. So I think that's where there's some of the areas that may work. I'm definitely happy to engage with you and understand from your experience. But I think some of the banks, when we are talking to them, they're looking into the some of the support, maybe in the cash management side of it, or say, for example, you look at into your corporate lending will be very tricky. I don't think so that's soon gonna happen, but maybe supply chain finance, trade finance is again much areas that not much work has happened, and corporate may looking for the some of the support. So I think happy to engage with you offline, and please share your numbers. We'll definitely call you back.
Sure, Shashank. I'll just drop in my number in Q&A so that you can have a look.
Sure.
I
Anybody?
believe you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, any questions? So I think thank you guys. Thank you for patiently listening to us. Your support is always encouraging to us. Thank you very much for attending us, listening to us. Share your feedback. We'll get back to you with the deck with the teams, and looking forward to for our next knowledge session. So thank you again. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you everyone for joining in.
And thank you, Vanshika. Thanks.